Hey, to all that know that they should come here, blessed are you in the world. So today we're going to talk about the revelation of the 8 laws. Now, this isn't the reality of the 8 laws is this doesn't take effect until we start speaking. Okay? Now, before a person starts speaking, they learn speech, but they learn the emotional, landscape, because the baby that does not possess language will think with political optics. And that's a serious thing, because that's learning something in a way that actually language cannot touch, man. Language cannot touch knowledge that is conceptualized as, the sum total of an equation of political optics, right? Language doesn't go there, okay? And so we'll talk about the revelation of the 8 laws. And the first law of anxiety: you must conceal your anxieties. Now, because as we know, the baby must embrace Stockholm syndrome, which is to befriend your oppressor. That's what Stockholm syndrome means. And so the baby embraces Stockholm syndrome before the baby learns language, because the baby sees this language of political optics. And so when the baby grows up, child begins to speak, this is when the first law comes into effect. So to make sure that that the baby keeps everyone happy, because previous to that, consciousness, the child will value consciousness, man, like without even knowing, they'll thoroughly hang on to consciousness, and this is why kids are kids, this is why they act like they do. And but when we begin to speak, the first law comes into effect. We must conceal our anxieties in this environment where anxiety is believed of as wisdom. And so we keep quiet about what's worrying us, like say the parents there are arguing in that, the child will know there's something terribly wrong with this picture, but won't say anything about it, right? And invariably it is the threat of someone who's expressing the most anxiety coming down on them that will stop people expressing their anxieties, right? Which is concerns for other people. And so we get the whole position of consciousness is undermined because of the threat of reaction from the people in our environment that believe that anxiety is wisdom, right? And so and concurrently with the first law really is the second law. You must allow all others to conceal their anxieties. And so, and this is just two people who are concealing their anxieties, so really the first law is about concealing your anxieties. You must conceal your anxieties. But the second law is really about letting other people do that as well, because this is consciousness values, right? We're fair-minded, right? And so really in the personal experience, the first law is is reality, right? And in the second instance is the other, that they must be allowed to conceal their anxiety as well, or not be challenged about it. But the second law is really about letting other people do that as well, because this is consciousness values, right? We're fair-minded, right? And so really in the personal experience, the first law is reality, right? And in the second instance is the other, that they must be allowed to conceal their anxiety as well, or not be challenged about it, because it's very worrying explaining ourselves, man. Oh. And so we instinctively know this. And so really the first law and second law, they work together. And because the second law really is the first law. And so this is where language begins. This is where language begins. And so we go forth with that understanding, talking to each other while observing the first and second laws. And this is terribly troubling to me, because it forces people to be emotionally distant. It forces people to, this is where the 10% of the brain thing comes from. Now, it forces people to only use 10% of their brain. I mean, there's plenty of instances where people are told that this is true, and but then in the experience of being respectful to this anxiety, right? It's for this reason as well that we don't generally challenge that authority. So people might tell us that we only use 10% of our brain. And that's kind of a rhetorical statement almost, because what they're actually saying by saying that you only use 10% of your brain is that, well, there's this anxiety thing that will actually stop you from speaking, and the most you're allowed to say is 10% quantity of what consciousness would ordinarily want to say. And so that's an interesting point. And this is this experience we're having. You see, you might think, first law is you must conceal your anxieties. But then there's all these people that replicate the function of anxiety, right? Which is exactly the opposite, right? And this is what it means to when I say when anxiety is in the imperative. It completely flips it around. And anyway, as we go through the vids, I'll be making statements about that. I'll be speaking to that. And so yeah, while the young person has this, you know, this political agreement they grow up with, and they don't see anything to challenge it. They may see an elder person being openly offended or angry with someone because they are acting outside the jurisdiction of the 8 laws. And so we see the political optics of that, right? You know, and this is where the power of anxiety comes from. It's seeing the political optics of people that really believe in it, or they're in a situation that there is a high level of it, and the political optics of it is that it's really important. And because people are already in that moment where they've got this real personal relationship with anxiety, and so this is how we go forward as people, and how we have gone forward, and so I'll make a video of the 8 laws. It is difficult to qualify the 8 laws individually because they actually all work together, and so that's a difficult thing to do. And so there's something about writing the book which I'm experiencing in great measures, which is, how do I write this while it's something that everyone already knows about? And so, like everyone thinking that everyone knows about it, and that's what gives it its power, we've got to, the mission is to switch that around so everyone knows that it's not what we know, right? And that's what I'm into doing. And So that's the first law, and really the second law is the same as the first law, but it's with another person. So the one person believes that they must conceal their anxieties, and they know that this person is doing the same thing, and thus is the start point of our language. Both parties doing that, and now we have the whole world doing that, and so it's so far developed away from the start point of this, right? Now I think it wasn't like this all the time. It's only been like this. It's only been like this in the modern world, in the modern era, in the last 1,000 years, since religion's been around and ratified and legitimate, made it legitimate that this is reality, right? Which is it's a big fat lie. It's not reality at all. It's what we choose to do under the circumstances, while everyone is both must conceal their anxieties. And so our whole perspective of everything is, the perspective of problems, perspective of answers. And so that's something about the first law, and this whole business of protecting oneself, which is also the lie of anxiety, because we don't need to protect ourselves when we are around people. When we're around people that have the goodness of the human spirit. And so this is the thing that's got to be changed around. And it's like New Zealand used to be. You can guarantee everyone, and it's still like that. You can guarantee people have this code, okay, where we're bonded together, and it's like we respect the first law, but we're carrying on according to consciousness anyway, and so this is the situation with religion as well. We've got the 8 laws of anxiety, and religion allows us to carry on according to consciousness while observing the 8 laws, right? And so as it is with the individual, I want to conceal my anxieties and only communicate like that. Everything else is extrapolating out from that, and so this is the situation. This all starts with the situation. What does the baby that does not possess language think? And so that's my report on that. Is the baby that does not possess language thinks with political optics, and this is a tragic thing. I mean, so much of the media has the political optics that anxiety is virtuous, and really the political optics of the media is that, I'm talking about television in general, we think very highly of conflict. Otherwise, why would we have it on the TV? Why would it be on the TV? Sports, man, crash. People competing. What's the political optics of that? And then everyone around the pitch cheers, yay! And they could be the political optics, And this is this amazing dynamic, amazing thing going on, man, where you can have this thing like I've just described, like rugby, for example. Crash, push, just to get the ball to the other end. And that kind of is like how we observe the thing of anxiety, right, which is all the push, but we still value consciousness, which is actually getting that point at the end, beating that anxiety. Yeah, is that what it's about, really? Is that what consciousness is organised under the circumstances? And this is the world the baby that does not possess language sees. I mean, yeah, so that's the first law. And so next will be, it'll be the second law, but we've done that kind of because that's been announced and pronounced, and so the next will be the third law, fourth law. Yeah.